Someone is in a bad mood and you apologize. Not because you caused it, you're fairly certain you didn't, but the apology comes out anyway. Automatic, immediate, almost involuntary. Sorry. Sorry for existing in the same space as whatever this is. Sorry for not somehow already having made it better. And afterward, you don't feel relieved. You feel vaguely ashamed of yourself, because part of you knows you had nothing to apologize for, and another part of you couldn't stop it from happening. This isn't a social reflex. It isn't just politeness or conflict avoidance. The people who do this most consistently share a specific history, and the apology is the most visible surface of something that runs considerably deeper. What it's taking from you is not just dignity in isolated moments. It's the operating assumption that your presence, your needs, your feelings require an apology before they're allowed to exist. That assumption came from somewhere, and it's worth understanding where. Researchers studying the psychology of excessive apologizing have identified what they term preemptive appeasement, apologies that function not as acknowledgments of wrongdoing, but as attempts to neutralize a perceived threat before it materializes. The work of psychologist Harriet Lerner, whose research on communication patterns in close relationships has been widely applied in clinical settings, distinguishes between apologies that repair and apologies that submit. The first acknowledges genuine impact. The second is a bid for safety, an attempt to reduce one's own profile in a situation that the nervous system has flagged as potentially dangerous. The person who cannot stop apologizing is not excessively polite. They are operating under a learned threat assessment that most situations don't actually warrant. The word that matters there is learned. The common interpretation of compulsive apologizing is that it reflects low self-esteem, that the person who constantly says sorry simply doesn't value themselves enough to hold their ground. That framing misses the mechanism entirely. Compulsive apologizing is not an absence of self-worth. It is a protective strategy, one that was likely very effective in an environment where being smaller, quieter, and less demanding genuinely reduced the risk of something going wrong. The apology was never about you. It was about managing what happened if you didn't apologize. That is a completely different problem to solve.
Mechanism 1. The apology was originally a regulation tool. In environments where another person's anger, disappointment, or withdrawal felt threatening, particularly in childhood when those responses carried real consequences, an apology was one of the most powerful tools available. It could de-escalate, it could restore warmth, it could shorten the period of tension or silence. It worked. Not always and not perfectly, but reliably enough that the nervous system cataloged it as the appropriate response to interpersonal threat. Developmental psychologist John Gottman's research on emotional environments in early family systems shows that children who grow up in homes with high emotional unpredictability develop disproportionately strong conflict reduction strategies. These strategies become automatic, deployed at the first signal of tension, regardless of whether the child, or the adult they become, is actually responsible for what's happening. The apology you give today for something that isn't your fault is the same apology that once reduced the temperature in a room you couldn't leave. Your nervous system doesn't yet know those rooms are different. Mechanism 2. Apologizing preempts the thing you actually fear. There is a second function that compulsive apologizing serves, and it is more specific than general appeasement. The apology is often a bid to control the narrative before someone else does. If you name your own fault first, even a fault you don't genuinely believe is there, you remove the other person's power to name it for you. Psychologists studying shame resilience, including Brené Brown, whose research on vulnerability and shame has produced some of the most replicated findings in this space, identify this as a preemptive shame strategy. By apologizing first, the person retains a degree of authorship over the interaction. It is a form of control that looks like submission. The cost is that it reinforces the belief that an apology was warranted. Every unnecessary sorry is a small confirmation that your presence required one. You apologize when someone bumps into you. You have said sorry for crying, sorry for being upset, sorry for having a reaction to something that genuinely warranted one. When you make a request,
Even a reasonable one, it arrives wrapped in so many qualifications and apologies that by the time the actual ask comes out, it barely sounds like an ask at all. You feel a specific discomfort in the gap between doing something and being told it was fine. The apology fills that gap before the verdict comes in. You have replayed conversations looking for the thing you said that caused the shift in someone's mood, even when the shift had nothing to do with you. You are not too much. You were taught, in ways that were not always explicit, that you were, and you've been apologizing for it ever since. The apologies will not stop the moment you understand why they happen. That's not how nervous system patterns work. But something does shift when you stop interpreting each unnecessary sorry as evidence of weakness and start reading it as information. Your system just flagged a threat. The question worth asking is whether the threat is real or whether you're in a different room now than the one that taught you to apologize. That question, asked consistently, is where the pattern begins to change. Drop a comment. Is it the automatic apology that you recognize most, or the wrapping every request in qualifications? Most people find it's one more than the other. If this is the kind of content you want more of, subscribe and leave a like. It's the best way to make sure the next one finds you. Next, why you destroy good things right before they work out and why it keeps happening even when you can see it coming.